Welcome back to the High Value Man Conversation. I've got a very special guest, my good friend, Mr. Todd Abrams, the founder and CEO of Icon Meals, a meal prep delivery service. Todd is a man of faith, a student of fitness, and an all-around badass. Married 25 years, the love of his life. He's got 3 beautiful kids living in the Dallas area, and he talks openly and honestly about how faith has given him the foundation to not only figure out his purpose, his plan, and his priorities in life, but also solve his visa issues. Yes, solve his visa issues. All right, guys, without further ado, let's hop into the episode. All right, my friends, we got Todd Abrams, the founder and CEO of Icon Meals, a meal prep delivery service that is nationwide. It is gangster. It is amazing food. They have some amazing influencers that are big proponents of the brand. It is convenient. It is tasty. It is delicious. And Todd is an all-around badass as well. He's a father. He's a husband. He's a man of faith. And I'm so excited to have you on the show, brother. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome, Aaron. I appreciate you having me on. It's a pleasure and an honor to be on and talk with you today.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So just so the listeners kind of know who you are, and I gave you a little bit of an intro, but if you don't mind introducing yourself and give us a little bit of background.
Yeah, for sure. I guess, like Aaron said, had Icon for, I don't know, about 7 years now. Originally, though, not from the States. So currently live in Dallas, married. So I guess been married this year, coming up 25 years. So it's pretty crazy. Yeah. More than half my life. 25 years together, almost, I guess, 28, 3 kids. So 22, 18, and ready for this, 7. So
yeah,
you're not done yet. So, but keeps me young, keeps me on my toes. I guess the big thing for me is really probably for the listeners. I tell people probably, I don't know if I'm employable, never worked for anyone. So I've had sort of 3 of my own, I'll call them startups or companies. So went to college originally in Northern Canada to play hockey, grew up playing junior, lived in Northern Ontario. And then from there sort of went for a degree that I'm not using. So as many of them.
What's the degree in?
I guess there's a little bit of marketing that might be somewhat in there, some business, and then public administration, which really doesn't do much. So came out of there, and I grew up in a weird industry. So my dad in Canada owns funeral homes and cemeteries. So I grew up in that business. Started my first company that was actually in that business, but not in the traditional sense. So more on the application software development. We were the first ones ever to write funeral home management software back in the day.
Okay.
Sort of back before there was a lot of websites, a lot of email. Like my dad used to drive, I remember 45 minutes to 2 hours just to drop obituaries off rather than email them, right? So this was when I started that company, they're like, "You're crazy. What are you doing? You're bringing technology to this old industry, blah, 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 blah." And I guess a little bit before the time, but it was it went well. We probably built somewhere north of 14,000 websites for funeral homes. Wow. Did a lot of the like writing the first stuff tying into like all the EDI and stuff into the hospitals, death scare certificates. We also had a memorialization program online. So one of the first probably program called Memorial Cast, where if you weren't actually, I don't know, say I was in Australia and my mom died in Canada and I couldn't make it. We'd actually broadcast the funeral in live real time so you could interact remotely.
Wow.
Had another company, like another piece in there called funeralemployment.com. So like the monster.com for the funeral industry.
Wait, so who are you like getting? What were you getting jobs or what are you looking for?
Yeah, it's a big industry. It's a huge industry.
Yeah.
Right? It's one of the hardest things to fill positions because there's not a lot. So it was a B2B site. We had a B2B application that you could actually like way back before people would actually buy things online, right? From vendors and stuff. So buying caskets and stuff. It was, again, a lot ahead of the time. We had a little bit of a breakthrough there. We got a big article on the front page of San Jose Mercury News. So this kid that is from Canada living in Dallas, blah, 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 built the dream, etc. And so we got picked up there. And then after that, it was pretty interesting what happened from there, but spun out another company. We ended up selling that company to a publicly traded consolidator, Keystone Group and Stewart Enterprises. So our software is still used in a lot of, I call it funeral homes today. I learned a lot of lessons there. And then from there rolled into, had a company called Layer Technologies. And we were one of the first in the cloud computing space. So I'm sure your listeners know WordPress, as do you. So we were the first guys ever to host WordPress. So Matt, who started the company Mullenweg, He had 2 servers when he was still working with CNET, and it sort of grew from there. Had that company for 14 years, had about 200 employees, sold that company in 2014 to another company called DataPipe, who then sold to Rackspace. So some of your listeners probably know Rackspace, they're publicly traded. And our federal sort of hosting division is still ran inside Rackspace. And then people say, well, how the heck did you get in food? Like, what's that all about? It's crazy. You've had software application development, you've had all this other stuff, but food. And anyway, so food to me is more been a passion project. I grew up, if you've ever heard my story before, probably not as the skinny or even in the shape I'm in today. So I grew up as the fat kid. When I say fat kid, I think it's all relevant, right? Not 400 pounds, but I think at the most it's probably 260 pounds, something like that, but 38-inch waist, and thought I was healthy, right? Doing all the things that you're supposed to do, going to the gym, love the gym, but again, I love calories, right? So anything and everything that could fit in my mouth. So from that standpoint, I just didn't really know anything, right? But I just, again, so looking at food to me really as something that can change people's lives if it's used the right way. And for that business, I've always in business had to have 2 sort of things in any business. My mentor always taught me that you have to have recurring revenue. And that was the same thing in all my businesses, right? Software license, hosting revenue. And I look at food as really that stickiness because as you know, people eat whatever 3 to 5 times a day typically. And so from that stickiness, then you have to have I call it a solution to a problem. And when I looked at Icon, the solution was really that element of convenience. We all live busy lives, we're all doing different things. And we thought, hey, if we can do this better. I had some other friends that were doing different things. I just didn't like all the sort of the preservatives and how they were doing food and stuff. And I was picky. I had learned a lot, starting to get in better shape for me. So it was important to me. And that's how we started Sort of Icon, and met Danny, who's my partner, our executive chef. And Sort of Icon was born from there. So
yeah. So, and let me just extract something that I think I heard you say. You say when starting a business, you're looking for really 2 things. One, reoccurring revenue, because that's going to be repeated buyers, a solution to a problem. But there's also the passion element from the standpoint, like you got to love what you do. And you solved your own pain by going to the food industry, going from fat kid to fit kid. Tell me though, what was the catalyst for you in going from, you are an icon, like you changing the whole mode of what dad bod should be. Right. And so what was the shift in your personal development to go from that to where you are now?
Yeah. I skipped over a lot of that. So take it way back. I'm weird. Like I've been out of my parents' house since I was 17 years old. Right. I never worked, I told you, for anyone, but like, here's my mentality. And it starts really like, so Honda, I lived in a town, I'm talking like of maybe 3,500 people, right? And there was nothing in that town, farm town. And then all of a sudden Honda came in, and Honda put this huge factory and it was going to employ 40,000 people. So as you can, like the town exploded, right? And everyone was like, you have to work at Honda, you have to work at Honda. And I was at the time going to college. So coming back and like, you have to work at Honda. I'm like, okay, whatever. So I get into Honda, and after all these interviews and stuff, and I'm talking like PhDs, like undergrad guys all have these jobs there. And I'm like, I lasted 2 weeks, and I'll just shorten that. And the reason I say that, I quit after 2 weeks, and I was like, I got almost barred from my house. My dad was like, what are you doing? You're like totally screwing up your life. You're never going to have this opportunity again. Like, I can't do it. My mind does not think that way. Right. Yeah. So I'm probably a little bit similar to you, Aaron. Like when I'd go in there, I'd have to put on this jumpsuit, right? A white jumpsuit, and I'd walk in between these yellow lines. And it was like 4 different jobs a day on this line that I each did 2 to 2.5 hours on, and we move on. And I was like, after the second week, I'm like, I cannot do this anymore. My mind just doesn't do that. So what did I do? I quit, and I went into network marketing, and I was doing network marketing with no secured income. I was doing 90 hours a day in this suit. And thinking back, it's pretty crazy because I was going downtown Toronto in these neighborhoods that now if I walked up the door, I'd probably get shot, right? But I was walking door to door doing all this crazy stuff. And that's where really my personal development, I'll call it journey, started. I had some mentors in there, sort of getting back into the Tony Robbins and all these other stuff. But that's where like I started really working on me, right? My love for like reading, my love for learning. I was drawn to people. So people watching like, hey, what does this guy do? Or what does this girl do? And how do they do it? Right. And putting the pieces together. So that was sort of the thing that pushed me, I guess, forward in my momentum to really starting to work on me. So that was the mind side. And then the physical side was really, I had really bad mono just before I went into college. And again, from probably partying and all this other stuff, but I lost 42 pounds literally in 21 days in intensive care. So I came out weighing like whatever, went in at 260. I came out at like weighing 220 something. I lost 3.5 inches off my waist. It was crazy. Like I didn't, the scholarship that I was going to play hockey on, I didn't play because I lost, it was just like muscle, everything. Right. But from that standpoint, that was really where I'll call it. From there, I went to like, I'll call it fat skinny, right? That skinny fat sort of deal, where skinny, not really known. But then I started getting back into the gym. I lived with a semi-professional bodybuilder all during college, up to when I started living with Deb. And again, just started learning those habits, right? Building those habits, learning, constantly learning. It's funny because I even tell Mike, like Mike O'Hearn's one of my best friends. I would see articles and stuff with Mike, right? And like watch his training and different things. And it's crazy today because like we train, we're family friends, like I'm Titan's godfather, etc. But just seeing those different pieces and building upon those and really taking it, I don't know, the eating element, right? Diet. So it was all like the Muscle Mags, Flex Magazine, all this stuff, muscle and fitness, and compiling articles, and then trying what works for me, right? The traditional bodybuilder, the rice, the chicken, stuff like that. But then slowly learning more of my macros. So when people say, oh crap, you're in great shape. Yeah, it's been a 30-year journey. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, it's literally been 25, 30 years where I wasn't in the shape I'm in today till I was almost like 36, 37 years old. Right. And it's just constantly been pieces one on top of the other, right? So that's sort of my journey. And then getting into like, after having the mono, after here, having kids, really, I can tell you, like back in 2012, I still remember we were in Breckenridge, Colorado. And again, I don't know, always had drinks and stuff and still enjoyed like partying and stuff. But 2012, New Year's Eve, I said, hey, I'm going to do a physique show. And everyone was like, ha, 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 funny. Like we're drinking on the back of this patio in Breckenridge. My wife's like, oh, whatever. And then once my mind's made up, though, it's made up, right? There's no changing. And so from that standpoint forward, I've never really, I've had another crazy night of partying since 2012. Okay. I'll have an odd drink here and there, but again, just things change, right? Again, putting my macros together. I did a show. I think I got 8th in this first show, did another show, qualified for whatever it was, NPC Nationals, and came in 2nd in 1 and 1st in the Masters division. And I was like, awesome. Hooked, right? And then went to do literally the pro show, the qualifier for your pro card in Pittsburgh. And in 2012, whatever it was, my same first year, I got 1st in Masters. And then it was like, okay, well, holy crap. This is when, like, if I'm going to do this now, it's really like on a different level, right? And that's sort of where it's like, if you're going to compete with these guys. And so that was where sort of everything moved forward. I've always been sort of since, I'll call it late 20s, early 30s, really aggressive in the gym, trying to push myself. And that's for me, like I'll call it, that's my therapy every day. Like my day starts at 3:15, 3 o'clock, between 3:30. I can get into my habits and stuff later, but like from that standpoint, I have to train, right? And it's really, to me, to be able to provide more value to other people and to for being the best, I have to do that. And I love it. Like it's heavyweight, high reps, volume, whatever. We've trained and stuff, I think, with B and stuff before, but from that standpoint, it's just really working continually on myself. And that's been a process since leaving Honda, is really when that was propelled.
I want to just pull on something too, because you jumped over it, and I think it's such a key point. You developed a lot of the mindset and sales skills, I imagine, in that network marketing phase, right? And for those listeners that don't know what network marketing is, this is like as cold calling as you can really get, where you're not door knocking, you are building relationships, you are learning how to face rejection over and over and over again. And it is all a cold sales business. And it is one of the best ways to cut your teeth before you get into entrepreneurship, because entrepreneurship is all about cutting your teeth and getting over rejection and getting people to like you, trust you, and to buy your product over and over again. I think that is so key, because there's so many guys that are in that phase of life where they know they're meant for more. They know they want something, but they don't know how to develop those skills. And I think anything in the sales industry is one of the best things to really develop that mindset.
I think that goes back to risk as well. Like people always say, hey, what's your theory or whatever you want to say it, right? Thoughts on risk. And I think that's one of the key things to a lot of people. A lot of people don't have that element of risk. They like, for me, people always say, hey, what if this, what if that? Like, hey, I never think that, right? Because in any business or anything that I'm in control of me. So if I know that I'm in control of me, I'm going to bet on me all the times, right? So it's never like, hey, you go bankrupt this. It's not in my mindset, because again, always working on me. So risk is different to me. Like leaving Honda, for a lot of people, guaranteed when you're 18 years old, 19 years old, making $21 an hour and all this other stuff is risk, right? Going to $0, okay? And knocking literally, like you said, on doors of all these people in downtown Toronto. But again, it's the same way that I think that holds people back. Like they're scared to speak on stage, right? They're scared to do that thing that network marketing pulls out of you. Unless you face that fear and you look at risk differently, you're never going to take that step. And I think that's why so many people are held in that, I'll call it, phase of mediocrity in life. So
Yeah, it risks self-trust, self-love, and faith, right? It's
Yeah,
like
faith's a huge part of it. You have to have that
it.
key thing. And that's like my number one pillar, my foundation of everything. Because if you don't have that and you don't have that connection, I just feel like everything else is not like, it's not on solid ground. So
all right, so let's spend a minute there. Like tell me about your number one pillar, faith, and how that has led you through these different points in life.
yeah, so for me, it's faith, family, fitness, and finance, right? And I have it that way just based on, I've always been a believer, I've always been a Christian and stuff, right? But I think as I've got older, and even till, I'll call it really just the past few years, and I'll give you sort of a piece from this year, even that just sort of like solidified even more. But for me, it was way back early on when I started my first company. It's all about money, right? Material things. Hey, I have to work because I'm never going to have enough, right? I don't have enough to buy this, to do this. And I was always lying to myself or telling myself this bull crap that basically I needed to work hard because I needed to do this. And then I sacrificed. And I don't like regret anything, but my two first kids, like Christian and Rowan, right? I would always be like excuses. Oh, I'm working late. I'm doing this and that. And it was a bit that, but it's not. It's a bit for me, like it's a bit the experiences, a bit the memories and different things now that we are creating. But again, I didn't have that solid foundation of my faith, right? So as I've grown, really for me, it comes back to having that faith, to having that belief that I'm in control, but there's someone else in control, right? And for me, that allows me to build that foundation. And again, like when I'll call it surrendered way back and just gave it up, give all the glory to God, it's things change, okay? And my relationship with God changes. And like, for me, that's my biggest thing. Every day I start my day in prayer, okay? Because I'm grateful. Like, I want to be used. I want to be used. And I ask every day, hey, like, use me, right? Use me for doing your will, like doing your good, okay?
Yeah,
and that's where I think for me, it's my biggest value to be able to reach out to others. And if I didn't have my faith, there's in different situations that I wouldn't have got through. If I didn't have like faith in God, like I truly believe that he's got a plan for me, like in all of us, right? Way before, okay? It's just walking down that journey. And if you have faith and trust and you're not led by sinful temptations and stuff, you have to have that element of like understanding he is your creator. And then from everywhere else, that when you have that faith and trust, your path leads you in the direction towards him, right? And from that standpoint, I think it solidifies a lot of everything else, where there's a lot of other questions and there's a lot of other temptation. And sure, temptation always comes into play, but if you are sound in your faith, you always know that where that sort of boundary comes into. You can be tempted in a lot of different areas, but I don't know if that's where you want me to go, but like from the standpoint of
how did you surrender? Because here as a high performing entrepreneur, guy that's, got the body, got the business, that you can produce, you got good self-trust. How did you surrender to submitting to a process and really learning how to follow before you can really learn how to lead other people? How did you surrender?
So I think for me, it's giving up, knowing that like I'm not in charge, right? Like if I always say, hey, my plan's not the best plan, okay? And that's like, once I gave that up, and it's not like, hey, I hear all this stuff all the time. I'm not going to harp on anyone, but self-made, to me is BS, right? Because you're not self-made, okay? You've been made by a creator, okay? You've made by God. And there's a lot. There's a lot there that I think when people say, hey, self-made, it's really that ego. And there's that ego that can't be broken down. And for me, I told you over those years, it had to be my ego broken down. And once I had my ego broken down and humbled, and once I started getting into reading the word and scripture, and I'll tell you, one of the biggest influences in my life in that area is Heath Evans. Okay. And Heath Evans, and like, he's helped me in more situations and really, I'll call it dialing me in. And still today, even I follow scripture readings and Bible study with him. Like, he's helped me in so many ways, because when I surrendered and just sort of gave it up and said, hey, God, what do you want me to do? Right. I want what you want for me in my life, in my family. I put him first in everything. Right.
Yeah.
And then that path, it opened up opportunities and it opened up things. And the biggest thing, Aaron, that I had a problem with, a lot of people pray, right? And they pray and they want, they do what I'll call making these deals. Right. But it's not that. It's, for me, my biggest holdup with, I think, originally my relationship was about timing and different things, right? And God has timing, and timing's always perfect. And it's not necessarily your timing is the timing that's the right time, right? Things happen. When I, again, was able to surrender, and when I was able to get into more scripture and more passages and stuff, it really allowed me to just be at peace with the path that was put in front of me and with the timing. I'm in the States, been in the States for 27 years, okay, on visas, right? I had a big cluster this year with all the COVID crap. Canada was locked down like for a long time, right? So I hadn't been going back. I went to Mexico and for my daughter's graduation. And as I was coming back in, the guy checks my passport, whatever, the border. He's like, hey, is there something I need to know? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, hey, come with me. I'm like, well, whatever. I've always been in these damn rooms, okay? So long story short, I'm not going to get into details, but like I had an issue with my visa because I hadn't gone back to Canada because I couldn't get in unless you're vaccinated, okay? So this dude at the border in this room for 5 hours, okay? F-bomb, 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 F-bomb. I'm going to F-in deport you to Mexico, blah, blah, blah. Let them deal with your blah, 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 ass, blah. Anyways, long story short, the guy takes a red crayon. My wife's there. She's bawling because the guy's screaming at me in this room, okay?
Yeah.
Writes canceled in a red crayon all over my visa. My lawyer's never seen this. Basically deports me, okay? Tells me I got to leave, okay? I've been here.
Go back to Mexico.
No, to Canada.
Oh, to Canada. Got it.
I'm standing in shorts and a t-shirt in the Dallas airport, okay? I haven't told anyone this. Well, some people know, but I'm going back to Canada. Canada's quarantined. Canada's locked down, okay? But that's where I have to go because this dude said. So
oh my God.
None of this ever should have happened because I've got like my visa, I employ 100 people, put tons of revenue, all this crap. It's all on the computer. But this guy was just on this power trip, right?
Sure.
So he writes on Deb's because now he's giving me some lenience. Hey, you have kids here, blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, look, they're all American citizens, whatever. So he writes on hers a visitor visa. He gives me 5 days to get my crap together and leave. So first thing I do, call my lawyer, I've dealt with 25 years. He's like, dude, never seen this, blah, 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 whatever. What this dude basically made me do is cancel my visa. I had to redo all the paperwork for my visa, which would normally take 5 days, right? I pay an ass ton of money, more than I paid in 1 day for both my kids' tuitions to college, okay, 1 year. I have to wire it. But the problem is in Canada, everything's been shut down. So I go back to Canada, ready? Before, there's no masks or anything, right? In Dallas airport, before I can get in the airplane, I have to put on a mask. This is when we have no masks anywhere. Get on the plane. We fly to Toronto, 11:45 at night I land, whatever they are, CDC or health, whatever comes on. Starts letting 60 people off the plane every 5 minutes before you can get in. So after I get in there, I get into the protocol thing and they're like vaccinated or unvaccinated, unvaccinated, purple stamp, go this way. Like literally you're going to this camp, okay? Walk down all this crap, go through, before I can get out of the airport, I've already had to do one PCR crap test or whatever it is, shoving shit up my nose. Before I can get out of the airport, I literally go to this like hospital thing inside Pearson International and wait another hour because they won't let me out of the airport before I do a second test. Then I go and I have to quarantine supposedly for 14 days. So I live like an hour and 45 minutes north of Toronto. Aaron, ready? I'm in a farm town. I was stuck in Canada for 3.5 months. I lived
oh my gosh.
in a funeral home basement, okay? So during the quarantine, if I was in Toronto, they would have come to my house. These people come to my house checking on me. They call me. So the one day I'm not whatever there, and I was supposed to do some test. I don't have the test kit. I get the, anyways, I'll show you the letters are crazy, like $750,000 in fines. You're going to go 3 years imprisonment. And I'm like, this is why people kill themselves. It's crazy out there. Anyway, so all that happened to tell you my visa process, the lawyers filing it, it was so backlogged, okay? Normally 5 days to maybe 2 weeks. How many days do you think the backlog process was?
I have no idea. 100.
At that time, 234 days.
Oh my gosh.
So when my wife got the email from the visa people, because I forgot it said her, it showed me my date coming back here was March 2023.
Oh man.
So anyways, I couldn't get out of Canada. From that standpoint, and I tying this all back because it's really about, I'll call it my testimony in different things this year. This is probably the biggest thing. Like my faith was tested beyond anything, okay? And this is where my relationship for literally 3.5 months, but it was all planned. Like my original reason for even going back to Canada was because my mom was well overweight. She had got the shot. After her first shot, she went in and had a major stroke. She almost died. She then went, built her back up a couple months and got her booster.
Yeah.
In 8 hours, she had a major stroke again. And so she was like, when I got back there, it was bad. In bed on morphine, eating Cinnamon Toast Crunch, blah, 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 blah. It was crazy. Like she almost 300 pounds. So I was put there and anyways, helped her lose 50 pounds, et cetera, over those 3 months. But that was the original point there. But again, everything was tested, right? So I'm a big reader. Again, reading every day, asking God, like, why, like, just what's going on, right, with me. And it was, again, growing my relationship. I started going to, Vince Del Monte. Started going to elevation worship with him down there, participating in that. And just, again, the community that I built there and the service that I did, it's the first time ever I really served, right? Before it was all like about, oh, my time, I don't have the time. Just filling my time. I had nothing else to do. Serve and engulfing myself in there. But again, there's books I read. And one of the books, and this is where it ties back. So Mark Batterson, the first book I read was Draw Your Circle. Okay. I don't know if you ever heard of Circle Maker. So anyways, the Circle Maker, it talks about, like, again, you can read it, I'm not going to the details, but he has one called Draw the Circle. And then Draw the Circle is, you read one passage a day, and basically it's a prayer and stuff, right? That basically ties back. So that started, it's 40 days. So from when I filed my stuff, and I got introduced to 2 other lawyers that I knew that do the Toronto Raptors, all this stuff. Anyways, finally, by the time when I got introduced to them, then I'd already paid all my lawyer. They, through connections, making 2 phone calls, I had an appointment. But after that 40 days, everything lined up where on the 40th day, which was my birthday, okay, which was my birthday. Didn't know these guys. I was planning on trying to drive back, etc. After that call, 2 hours later, they had me an appointment in Ottawa where they don't do E2 visas. Okay. I drove 6.5 hours. They go, you're going to meet some guy named Evan. When I go there, there's a huge line, everything. Like, I walk in, it's supposed to be 5-minute sessions. I'm talking to this guy after for almost 60 minutes because he's just like talking to me, and he's like apologizing to me. And this never should have happened. But again, it's all about these connections. But Aaron, that Draw Your Circle on the 40th day, tied to my birthday, to when the next day I was able to go back to the US. And there's a whole bunch, like, during that time I read In the Pit with a Lion on a Snowy Day. And that talks about where basically, again, your readers should definitely look at Mark Batterson's books, but putting you in this pit, right? Tearing you down. Like, you've been in this pit. All these lined up to exactly my story. Yeah. And it was crazy what he had put in front of me in the path. And it made so much more clarity. But my biggest struggle was about the timing at the start. I'm like, why? Like, every day I'd pray, right? Every day it was just a bit, and it was a constant struggle, just breaking me down to where the point of, that's the lowest I've ever been. But then it also just shows you, that's my testimony, where he brought me so far back up, right? And there's been so much more opportunity there, like so many things since coming back. Like, I got to have Ryder's birthday, his 7th birthday. I was home 3 days before his 7th birthday.
That's awesome.
And I hadn't seen Deb or my 3 kids for 3.5 months because they couldn't come into Canada because they weren't vaccinated. We've been together 25 years and I've never been away longer than 7 days from her. It's crazy.
That's so beautiful, man.
But again, there's just a lot of different things. So that's my, I guess, biggest piece. But for me, even there, like, it just, every single day for pretty much the last almost year now, it's been closer and closer, building my relationship with the Lord, building my relationship, sharing. I've been able to help a lot of other people, and just, it's so many more opportunities have just opened up. I just want to continue sharing, being able to hopefully grow in that role. So
I believe the reason why we're here is to help people get closer to the Creator. Because at the end of the day, everyone is trying to figure it out on their own. We all are looking to the teachers, the guides, the gurus. We're looking outside, and we really have to learn how to trust that inner voice that is deeply connected to the Lord. And it's only through a process of surrender, of submission, getting into scripture, getting into the word, seeing the blueprint that works for other people, but also hearing the testimony of men like you, men that are on a mission, that are building businesses, that are committed to their relationships, their families, and sharing it, because that it's in the sharing that it inspires other people to start getting curious about finding their own path.
Yeah, I think that goes back to the breaking it down, right? A lot of people, especially males, men, have that ego, and they just feel like it's an element of, I'll call it internal risk almost, opening up, right? Vulnerability, different things. And I think that's part of me that I had to break down. And it's something that's not going to just be, like, it has to be learned. You have to go through it, right? And I think the biggest thing for me, I would not be as grateful, my faith would not be as strong and stuff if I had not got broken down. Like, it's the one thing, Aaron, like, for me, it doesn't matter how much money you have, okay? It doesn't matter anything. That was the first time in my life that I literally could do nothing but put my hands up, right? And just because it's the first time ever I've been in that situation. And it's just like, Lord, guide me. I have to trust you, right? Like, And it's, again, building that faith. And I think the biggest thing is you got to build faith upon faith upon faith upon faith. I say, you got to like work hard, but you got to pray harder. And
yes, true. What's your, let's get into some practical and tactical. What is your routine look like? I know you said you get up between 3:15 and 3:30. That's a prime time hour for those downloads. But what's your daily practice look like with scripture, with reading, church throughout the week, men's groups? What does that look like?
Yeah, so for me in the morning, first thing I do, I'll wake up, typically spend probably 30, 45 minutes in prayer myself. And again, I have a ritual that I do there. Then getting into scripture, I again, like I said, follow a lot with Heath. So we have like a sort of guided plan that typically it'll be, I don't know, 1, 2, 3 chapters of a specific book, maybe a psalm. Again, it's a sort of, right now it's more, I was in Romans 1:4, right? 1 to 4. But again, just different things. So I've pretty much, I'll call it almost in the last 6 months to a year, read pretty much the whole Bible. But again, going back now, and it's funny because things that I'll call a lot of people read, but they don't internalize and they don't take it in, right? And I think that's the part of me that has changed in my life. It's actually getting in it, studying. So if I read something, right, I'm going to go through it, the interpretation, the meaning, and what it like. So studying more into that. So from there, then I typically, after scripture and that study, I'll do probably another 30 minutes or so of reading. So I'm in Mark Batterson's one book now called Play the Man. That's probably a book I need to send you, but it's a lot of your audience. Great book. And then typically from there, I'll train, right? So from after that, I don't know, I won't say lazy, but it's more convenient for me. So I got a garage gym built out. Yeah. And even though we have all these Lifetime and all this other memberships, I probably got 5 memberships. I end up just going to my garage and pounding it out. But I love it, right? Everything I have in there. So typically I'm going to train probably 45 minutes. And typically people say, hey, how many days a week do you train? I don't know. It's whenever I feel that I need a day off, I'll take a day off. But like I said, it's my therapy. It's what I love. So it's, again, if I'm more stressed and stuff, I'm probably going to beat it up more in there. I love the heavy bag and do a lot of, I don't know, I'm different. So on some of the stuff, I'll maybe be training back, but then also between sets on back, I'll do anywhere from 30 to 90 seconds, like on the heavy bag and stuff, right? As cardio and stuff, or 2,500 meters in 500 meter blocks and rows, going all out for time. And then probably 5 of those days I'll do 30 to 45 minutes of cardio. And that's more running for me. And it's more, people say, hey, it's fat loss. No, to me, it's more like on the heart and on the mind and stuff. I made a goal last year, January. I hate running, and I made myself try to do 3 miles a day. So now 3 miles a day is pretty easy. Typically it'll be a 3-mile run. Or if I'm walking, I'll go back and forth on a level 15 to 18 incline at roughly a 3.2. So, but again, that's sort of the morning, how it starts. And I do that. And people say, oh, you're selfish. Well, no, I don't believe it's selfish, because after that, right, I go in, shower, get my little guy, and I always take my little guy to school. And that's one thing that I missed on the other two, because I'd say, oh, I got to be in the office, right? I got to do this. It's a bunch of bullshit excuses. So from that standpoint, but again, it's just prioritizing what's important to me. I have to set my day on those first things, right? And the first thing is waking up and giving all the glory to God every day to start, right? And that's the most important thing, first thing in my life, because if not, everything else is guided off course. So
yeah, beautiful, man. That's the morning of a high performer, a CEO, someone really that understands the first and foremost, most important priority. I love that, man. Thank you for sharing.
And then the other things, just in regards to, like you asked, Bible study and stuff. So typically Sunday church, and Sunday's family day. We go to church, do a bunch of different things, but from Bible study, so like on a Thursday night, Keith Evans has another group that we do an hour Bible study. There's a prayer thing I sometimes do on a Tuesday night, but again, those are the sort of the 2 times a week outside of church.
I love it, man. I love it, man. Todd, I want to respect your time, and I know that you got a ton of stuff going on, but I want to go back to the business for just a second. So Icon Meals, growing like wildfire, crushing it. What would you say is the biggest roadblock that you see coming up in the future, as so many people are starting to order from home? And the meal delivery, you had a technology business that was inside of an industry that was not used to technology. So I'm just curious how technology and the food prep and all that is going in this next season. What do you see coming up?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge has been more, people would say, supply chain and things, right? Just on, everyone talks about inflation. I don't think inflation is relevant, but in the food industry, people are still going to buy food, right? They have to eat. So it's really trying to understand your audience, but also you have to maximize and make efficiencies work inside. So as you grow, right, it can't just be the same way you started. I think in the food space, you're one of two. You're either going to stay small and local, or you got to be huge, right?
Yeah.
And national, because that in between is where you're going to get killed. So it's like, pick your poison, and we picked big. And again, it's a lot of risk. People are like, holy crap, like I wouldn't never, it's just how I'm wired, right? So it's, to me, it's not risk, it's challenge, and it's things that fire me up to grow. So we got big goals, but I think a lot of it is building a team, a good culture, finding the right people. And especially that's been challenging over the past couple of years, just based on COVID. A lot of people paid to stay home, as you know, different things, right? And especially in our industry, when the hotels and hospitality and stuff and restaurants open back up, all these people were paying like stupid bonuses, blah, 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 to try to draw them back in. But again, if you have a culture and you take good care of your people and you build something that they can have the passion, but they're also enrolled in the vision. I think that's important, right? You have to enroll your people in the vision. It's not just like, hey, you're a boss. It's like, you need to be accountable and responsible to those people, right? And it's up to you. It's, again, I pray for my team, my company every day, right? And just different things, but it's really guiding them on a path. So it's like, I'll call it, they're an entrepreneur, really, right? It's not just employees. So you got to look at from them and build that. And then it's also just, again, understanding the inner workings of your business. And I say, you got to surround yourself with smarter people than you, right? Like going back to that John Maxwell law of the lid, like most people like are at that lid, right? Hitting that lid in order to grow, and I'll call it blossom. Like you got to raise that lid. And for me, the last 3 companies I've had have been able to grow, I don't know, 15, 25 million pretty easily myself or with a small team, but then it takes a different team of people, right? And again, you have to, for a lot of people, I think ego gets in the way. You have to humble yourself and take it out. I don't want to be the smartest person. I want to surround myself with better people, right? Pay people more. Like they're like, oh, how can you pay blah, blah, blah? Because don't you make, no, I want to reward them, and I want to pay for that talent, right? And be able to have them feel entitled and enabled. And I think that's one of the biggest key things. Like I don't micromanage, and maybe that's a downfall. But again, allowing them to even make mistakes and come back. Sure. Okay. Once, maybe twice, but don't accept it the third time. I learned a long time ago, you got to like sort of hire slow and fire fast, right? And if you make those decisions, then you're on a good course, but really you have to understand your numbers as well. Don't fool yourself, right? So,
and there's not a whole lot of margin inside of the food industry, man. You got spoilage, you got supply chain issue, you got timing, you got shelf life. You know, there's a lot to manage. And going big like you guys are doing, what are the big things you got coming up? If anything you can share, what are some big changes in your business or expansions? I'm curious, because you guys are at the top.
You're pretty much at a peak, right? You can't ever, like people say, hey, keep raising prices. Well, in food, you can't just keep raising prices, right? Because there's only so much you can charge for a meal. Okay. So it's, again, building those efficiencies in, understanding like the supply chain, right? Understanding, hey, looking at trends coming in. Do you need to buy more? Do you need to, I don't know, sell futures against or buy futures, right? Or make an investment in there. Like last year, we bought a ton into our additional trays and plastics, and could I really afford it at that time? No, but it's paid dividends this year for us, right? So again, understanding and looking at like forecasting, and don't fool yourself. Like you need to keep evolving and growing. And if you're not changing, like you're dying, right? So from that standpoint, and then as you said, like I think that's one of the things a lot of meal prep companies do. They fool themselves. They think they have this margin, and you don't. But again, what we've been able to do is add in, I'll call it functional food items, right, that have the high margins. So we have our sauces, our seasonings, our nut butter line. We have like
popcorn,
protein popcorn. So there's a lot of different things that you got to be smart about. And I think like looking at increasing average order value, really understanding your LTV, and don't doing stupid crap, like going out and doing stupid sales. That's a short-term fix, because you're just killing and building I don't know, habits in your customers, right? That are going to hurt you down the road. So again, surround yourself with smarter people, not necessarily thinking that you know it all, and looking at trends in the industry, and then just trying to, I guess I'd say hold the line, but also you want to be able to pivot, right? You don't want to be so ego driven that you're thinking, hey, yours is the best way. You have to be able to pivot. And that's the biggest thing. Like, dude, there's roadblocks and there's speed bumps every single day. And you just got to be a master of, I don't know, having some compression shocks that allow you to go over those bumps.
And that's again, goes back to where the faith comes in, is having a clear picture and plan for your life, but knowing ultimately at the end of the day, if you give the glory to God, he's got a hold of the steering wheel, and it's going to take you to a much better place. I got one last question for you, Todd. I end this with all the guests. If you could answer this question. So a man of value is?
Yeah, I think a man of value is probably someone that builds up other people on a daily basis with every interaction, right? Tries to leave any person that they're interacting with better than when they first met them. So it's constantly I think the number one thing is probably like, it's giving. The more you can give, right? Like I said, ask every day, hey, use me. What can I do? How can I be of more value? How can I don't know, make more of an impact than I'm making the day before? And for me, it's all about like, a man of value is someone who works on being better every single day, right? It's 1% better. And I think a man of value is someone who lives an excuseless life. Just no excuses in life. Okay. And I think that ties back to your faith as well. But a man of value is someone that lives that excuseless life and works on being better every single day in sort of every single element of their life.
I love it, man. Beautiful, beautiful. Todd, I'm going to make sure that everyone gets dropped in with where to find you, iconmeals.com, Todd Abrams. But thank you so much for coming on. A man of faith, a student of fitness, a leader, an entrepreneur, an all around amazing man. And it's a pleasure to know you. I'm really grateful to have you on the show, man.
Awesome. Appreciate the time, Aaron. Thank you very much for having me today.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Much love. Many blessings. We'll see you in the next episode. Boom.